Good morning. It is Monday, January 23rd, 2023. My name is Hadiza Saadu. I am Kansas City Public Library's small business and nonprofit specialist. And today we are going to be covering a tool in the digital catalog called Legal GPS. And I am going to be focusing on the updates that Legal GPS has gone through that makes Legal GPS somewhat of a brand new tool in 2023. Hi, Fred. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you, Fred, just before we continue, if I can, for some reason. Oh, you did it yourself. Thank you. Awesome. It's great to see you, Fred. You're the only one on so far. I truly can't remember if me and you have covered Legal GPS. I really can't. For the life of me, I just can't. You're shaking your head. It looks like you haven't. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This meeting is currently recording. As I said earlier, my name is Hadiza Saadu. I am the small business and nonprofit specialist here at the Kansas City Public Library, and we are going to be covering a tool in our digital catalog today called Legal GPS. Okay, so go to the next slide, if it will let me. Okay, so this is the last slide we're going to cover. We're not going to be in the slide deck. But this just so that you understand what the goal of our time is today. The main learning objectives for our time are: one, to be able to locate and access information about Legal GPS through the Kansas City Public Library digital catalog. Next, by the end of our time, you should be able to at least know how to create an account through Wayfarer to access Legal GPS. I know that probably threw you for a loop right there. We're talking about Legal GPS. What is Wayfarer? Don't worry, we'll get to that. I'm going to promise it's not as complicated as it seems. And then third, by the end of our time, you should be familiar with Legal GPS's new interface. And if you've never used Legal GPS before, this will be totally brand new for you. If you have used it before, by the end of our time, you will definitely see how different Legal GPS is from how it was before. And then finally, by the end of our time today, you should be able to understand how you can use Legal GPS for your own business needs. Okay, so that is the end of that presentation. And we're gonna go, you'll let me escape. I never know how these things work. You'd think by now I should have it. All right, let me pull up this other screen. Okay, can you see my screen okay? Kansas City Public Library? Yes, awesome, okay. So we're going to start here on the homepage. Before I really get into things, I want to just kind of give everybody a little bit of background on Legal GPS itself. So this tool, Legal GPS, is a tool that came to be in early 2020. And it is a tool that we put live on our digital catalog after spending months of time going through the content with the person who created the tool and his team to make sure that it would actually make sense for the patrons that we serve at the Kansas City Public Library. So what that means is, I'll just kind of give a little bit of a story. So I started my role here almost 4 years ago. It was April of 2019. And some of the first people that I met with were people that had questions about the legal setup of their business. And as a library employee, I'm not a lawyer, so I had to be very clear that I was not giving anybody any advice. But to prepare for those meetings, I was basically doing what anyone else would do, which is Google. And by doing that, I would find a lot of different information that was pertaining to different states. Found some information that pertained to Missouri, and then basically would sift through that information and try to make my best guess as to what actually makes sense for Missouri. So I would have to give a lot of disclaimers, like, this is me gathering the information that I found and kind of using my best educated guesses based off of what this is saying about Maine or Texas, because these questions would be pretty specific. So I actually then met a business librarian at the St. Louis County Public Library. She does not work there anymore, but I was talking to her about this issue, and how I felt like I wasn't giving the best presentation of information. Is there something better out there? And she was like, oh, I need to connect you with this person. Have you ever heard of something called Legal GPS? And I was like, no. She was like, well, Legal GPS is this gamified app. And I hadn't really heard of the term gamification that much by then, but it kind of made my ears stand up. She said it was a gamified app that basically helps business owners and people who are aspiring to become business owners figure out what they need to do to get their business set up. And I was all ears. So I asked her to connect me to the person. His name is Chris Daming. So I connected with him, and we got to work. So he and his team were working on several different versions of this tool that we got to test out with people who had business questions through the library. And for about 6 or so months, we had kind of like a not live version of the tool where I would just kind of pull out, like if somebody had a question, say somebody came to me with a question about tax entity. I had no idea what a tax entity was, but that first version of the tool was able to not only help me understand what that was, but then clarify a decision that a patron needed to make about the structure of his business. So that being said, it's a tool that is very near and dear to my heart. It makes my job easier. Every time I show it to people, they're kind of amazed. I'm amazed every time just because it's a tool that has everything you need in one spot, whereas you would be going kind of down a wild goose chase on the internet, hoping to find the relevant information, or at least be pointed to somebody who can tell you the right answer. Okay, so with all of that said, let's get into it. We are on the Kansas City Public Library homepage. You can see the Kansas City Public Library displayed up top here. And then we have this white bar where we have 3 different sections. We're going to go to the section all the way over to the right-hand side called Resources Research. And what we're doing here is we're just hovering over this. That way we can see all of the resources that are listed in our digital catalog alphabetically. So we're going to go to L for Legal GPS. Okay, so Legal GPS is the 4th one under L. We're going to click on More Info. So when we click on this, we can access a little bit of information about what Legal GPS is itself. So I'll just read it verbatim right off of the screen. Legal GPS removes legal barriers for entrepreneurs and aspiring business owners by providing a series of step-by-step questionnaires. Create an account to get started or contact our community reference librarians for help. That would be me. Okay, so for those of you who are watching this, who have used Legal GPS before, and it's maybe you used it in the year 2021. What you'll notice here is underneath this blurb that gives us the description of Legal GPS itself, we've got some more information now about another tool called Wayfarer. So what we're saying here, we don't need this. No thanks. I'll just read it. Your Wayfarer experience is tailored to you. Creating an account allows you to track your progress, pick up where you left off, and get personalized tasks and recommendations. So for those of you who are totally unaware of the changes that have happened, which is going to probably be everyone that's watching this, Legal GPS used to be a standalone tool by itself. The group that created that tool was also tapped to create another tool called Wayfarer. Wayfarer now is the larger tool that houses Legal GPS. So Wayfarer itself is a tool that allows you to select a different one of 4 learning paths. So within those learning paths, you have the option of selecting a path related to job search, a path related to digital skill development, and I believe another path related to using a Chromebook. And then finally, the fourth and final path is Legal GPS. So just so that you understand how this is even working, Wayfarer itself is a tool that allows you to access different learning paths. Legal GPS is now one of those learning paths. So you have to create an account with Wayfarer first before you can actually access Legal GPS. So what you're going to do, if this is your first time going to Legal GPS, is you're going to, step 1, create an account with Wayfarer. So you'll click this link here. And now, Fred, just nod to me. Can you see this Wayfarer page? Okay, so it will take you to this page that looks like this. And if you already have a Legal GPS account, you already are registered. So you'll click on the already registered. But if you don't, you'll create an account for the first time and you'll use your email address. You'll set your first name, last name, and then you'll set a password and you'll confirm. So I already have an account. So what I'm going to do is just go back to this page and I'm going to click on Access Legal GPS. Okay, so once I've clicked on that, it takes me to a page to Wayfarer to sign in. Again, why is it taking me to Wayfarer? Because Wayfarer now houses the learning path Legal GPS. Awesome. So I'm going to sign in. And because I have only ever used Legal GPS with Wayfarer, Wayfarer has defaulted to just taking me directly to the tool Legal GPS itself and everything inside it. If this is your first time, you're going to see something that looks like this. And this is where we see all of the different learning paths, as I mentioned before. So we can just kind of see here, the first path is called the Online Library, Digital Resources for Books and Media Learning, Homework Help and Research. Then path 2, if you're looking for a job, this is the job seeker path. Find, apply, and get your job. Number 3 path, learn how to use your Chromebook. If you have a Chromebook that you are using through the library, this is the path for you. And then last and totally not least, Legal GPS, legal guidance for businesses. Now you understand that Legal GPS is a path under Wayfarer. Okay, so one thing I need to check here. So I have my screen resolution to 90%. I used to have my screen resolution on 100%. And I just need to point this out to you. It may seem totally off topic, but it's super relevant and we need to figure out how to fix this. But I just need you all to know this right now. So I just put my screen resolution back to 100%. This is what it defaults to. So this is what it should look like on your page. And I'm mentioning this because there's a chance that if you're using this on your computer, your screen might default to how mine did. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Legal GPS right now. So I've clicked on it and I'm trying to scroll right now with my mouse and I'm not scrolling. I'm not able to see anything below this first paragraph here. So I'm confused. I'm kind of just recreating what first happened when Legal GPS became part of Wayfarer. It changed and I was very confused for longer than I really would like to admit, but I'm sharing this so that if this happens to you, you'll know how to fix the issue and you won't be having to call the library to be like, hey, there's no link. I actually can't click on anything. I can't scroll. So remember how I said my screen resolution was at 90%? Well, the reason why is because I figured out that because my screen resolution was on 100%, the way that the display is, it's too big. So I need to make my screen resolution smaller so I can see more text. It's a glitch. We have to fix it. Or Legal GPS needs to fix it. So I'm just showing you a way around it. So if you run into the issue where you're clicking on Legal GPS path and you're not able to see a start path button like this, it means that you need to reduce your screen resolution so that you can find the start path button because you can't scroll. Sorry, it's annoying, but at least you know. Okay, now we can finally get into Legal GPS. So we'll just read this blurb here. Business owners get step-by-step customized directions to complete 50 plus legal essentials. You can save $4,500 in legal fees and over 60 hours of time. Now, about those numbers, I'm not sure, but what I can say is that with Legal GPS, it can range from being able to complete everything you need to complete to get everything registered without having to hire a lawyer, to being able to clarify the questions that you are going to take to an attorney eventually, but having the clarity beforehand so that you are maximizing the time that you have with an attorney. Okay, so we're going to start the path finally. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and refresh mine because it will then show you what it will look like from the beginning. So this is what it looks like if you've never been in Legal GPS before. Now, again, no, you're creating an account, so you're going to be coming back to this over time. This is not a tool that you're necessarily going to just use in one day and not use again. You're going to definitely use it over a period of time, which is why you create an account and it saves your work. So that's why you saw some things lit up. It means that I had been using the tool and it was saving my work. But for the purposes of showing you how the tool works, I have reset everything that I've done and we're starting from scratch. So I'm going to pretend like, okay, so you know what? Let's go with this. If there was nobody on this, I would have gone and just pretended like I didn't know what kind of entity I wanted to set up and shown you Legal GPS that way. But because Fred is here, I want to see Fred. Do you have, are you interested more in seeing like how Legal GPS can help you narrow down the choices that you might have as a business owner if you're not sure? Or are you more interested in seeing Legal GPS used if you know for sure, I want to set up an LLC, I just don't know how? Right. Number two? Okay, that's what I was thinking too. And I'll just say number two, in the interest of time, it will minimize the time, but it'll also show you once we get to level 2, exactly how Legal GPS is basically walking you through each step and making sure that you have all the tools that you need to complete each step so that by the time you're done with using Legal GPS, you have actually set up an entity. I will also note that if you are fresh and you have absolutely no idea what kind of entity you want to set up, maybe you have some kind of mission-based organization that you want to form, and you're not even sure if it's something that you want to be a for-profit or a nonprofit business. Level 1 will then be the level that helps you narrow the decision. And for most people, if you're not sure by the end of level 1, you are a lot more sure about what entity you're going to choose. But again, even with that, for those who know exactly what kind of entity they want to set up, they're just not quite sure the nuts and bolts of how to do it, this is super useful as well. But it just means that level 1 will be really short. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start. And I'm going to, for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to pretend that I know for sure I want to form an LLC, and it's going to be just me. So we're going to start with level 1. Level 1 is telling us, please answer a few questions to help us customize your legal GPS. We'll start. First question, have you created a legal entity for your company? So let's say I have no idea what this is asking me. I can click on this link here, legal entity, and it will give me a definition. This is one of the coolest things about legal GPS is that if you don't, it assumes you don't know anything. And even in the questions itself, you can find information. So just some information about what an entity is. While an entity can mean a lot of definitions, we use it to describe an organization that is formed officially in a state. So that's usually an LLC, corporation, nonprofit corporation, and then there's other ones that are hybrid, but legal GPS doesn't cover those really. Legal GPS does kind of cover sole proprietorships, but it doesn't go in depth just because sole proprietorships are never officially formed. Okay, and if that's still not cutting it for me, I can click here for more information, and I'll be able to access even more information. And just note, anytime a term is underlined, that means there's a link to it and you can access a definition and some context. So I know I have not created an entity, so I'm going to answer no. And after I've done that, I'm going to confirm my answer. And we see right now, I have 7 questions. Okay, so second question, am I creating a profit company, meaning something that's an LLC or corporation or a sole proprietorship or a nonprofit? I know for sure that I want to do an LLC, so it's going to be a profit company. So I'm going to click on a profit company and I'm going to confirm. Do you plan to seek outside cash investment in the next 12 to 18 months? Okay, let me tell you what this LLC is about. I just want to sell candles. So I am not trying to seek outside investment. This is kind of like a side hustle, but I don't want my, at least I've heard, if I do an LLC, I'm pretty sure that means that my personal assets are protected so that, in case anything happens, I don't have to, my own income is not affected. So I don't plan to be big like that. I just want to sell candles. So I'm not going to seek outside cash investment. So my answer to that is no. So I'm going to confirm. How many owners? Just me. Like I said in the beginning, 1 owner. Now we have finished all the questions. So now you see we had 7 questions and we ended and we had 5. So it just tells you that as you answer the questions, legal GPS is kind of like working in the background to present you with the next actually relevant question. Okay, so congrats, we finished level 1. Your GPS now has enough information to customize the next level for you. Now it's time to calibrate the GPS, or if I feel like I needed to change an answer, this is the time for me to go back to that. I've never actually done this, so just for kicks and giggles, I'd love to just click on what is under, click here for more information. Seems like a pretty straightforward question. It's not even a question, it's just do this or that. Okay, cool. So if you're concerned about locking yourself into your answers, don't worry. See, this is, you thought this wasn't going to be relevant. I've never actually clicked on click here for more information on this, but this is cool. So this is giving us some reassurance. So you might be concerned about locking yourself in. Don't worry. You can reset your answers as many times as you want. So for now, choose calibrate GPS to continue. If you change your mind later, you can click back on level 1 and then you can see an option to reset your answers underneath the view results button. So really, if you have a bunch of different, if you're of the type where you're like, I'm not about to register anything yet, but I just want to know every option that I have that Legal GPS could show me. And I have a lot of time. So I'm curious. I'm just going to pretend I'm a corporation this time. Next time, I'm going to pretend I'm a nonprofit. Next time, let's say I'm an LLC. You can do that. And you can change your answers and you can like take advantage of Legal GPS that way. And you'd be super knowledgeable by the end of all of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and calibrate the GPS because I really only care about the LLC information right now. Okay, it's loading. Now we're going to view the results. So this is where we really get into how Legal GPS looks different from what it looks like before. So if you've used Legal GPS before, this looks totally, totally different. And in my opinion, I feel this is I know this is even more customized than it was before. Whereas before, level 1, the information that is presented was the same information for everyone. Now Legal GPS has taken the information that you gave it, which is that I know that I want to start a for-profit company. So that's actually 2 pieces of information. What we've told Legal GPS in level 1 through the questions, just as a summary, is 1, I know I want to form a for-profit. Meaning that 1, I'm sure of what kind of entity, and 2, I have an idea of within the kind of entity, what specific entity. So I'm saying that just to say that it is very possible that you can go through level 1 and have basically told Legal GPS, no, I'm not sure what kind of entity to set up. And I know these are all my options, but I still don't know, because I could have said, no, I'm not sure. So that's just for you to know. So let's get to know our Legal GPS. So just so that you understand, once you click on a task, your job is to read through everything on the page. And once you're done, you're supposed to then mark that complete. So for we're going to kind of skim through this because we don't have all that time. But just, welcome to your Legal GPS. This is technically your first task. You're not really doing anything other than just getting oriented with Legal GPS, the tool. So this is really telling us what the goal is for this tool. The GPS is designed for you to complete a series of tasks toward a legally sound business. Once you finish the tasks, then each level unlocks. So after you have completed each level, so there's 3 levels, that means you'll get an email. So you had to set it up with your email to get a legal status report and just your stats within the tool for your own records. It's just kind of a record of how you moved through the tool. So this would also be a great piece of information to have if you do decide to work with an attorney later on, because then they can see, oh, okay, this is how you made your decisions. Okay, so just to get a breakdown of what each level is covering. Level 1 is there to help you identify the best legal entity for your business. This is where it has taken the information we've given it, which is that we want to start a for-profit company. So it says, you want to start a for-profit company. So in the following tasks, we will help you understand your options to make a choice. But I love reassuring you, it'll be super easy. It's not easy, but they make it easy. Just know this whole thing is complicated, but they present it in a way that's very digestible. Level 2, at least, for most people, at least more digestible than having to find everything through Google. Okay, so then next level, they will give you step-by-step guidance on all the things that you have to do to set up whatever you choose, whether it's a sole proprietorship, LLC, or corporation. And then finally, level 3 is going to get into the lesser known legal details that a lot of people tend to overlook. These are things that cover intellectual property, things that cover licenses and permits, website agreements, non-disclosure agreements, specific filing reports and other things. So, for those that are, planning to get into some kind of selling business, this section will cover things like, selling permits and things like that. Okay, so now that we've read the full page, we're going to go ahead and mark this complete. And since we've marked it complete, it turns to green, and then we click on next. Anytime that we can see that there's a next button, it means that we have not completed the entire section. Okay, so now we're getting into the actual decisions. The first thing that you're going to determine, if you know you're going to be a for-profit entity, is whether or not to be a sole proprietorship. Maybe you don't really even need to do anything. So I'm not going to go through all this, but all this is really doing is giving us the information about how a sole proprietorship actually works, with examples of when a sole proprietorship might or might not make sense. Typically, a sole proprietorship situation has to do with people that are taking contract work and like representing themselves in that contract work, and they're not hiring out anybody else to help them with that. It's just them. And this oftentimes tends to be like artists that are commissioning work, could be a carpenter, things like that. So this is just giving us some examples. This example is an artist that moonlights and sells paintings on Etsy, gives, about a revenue number per year. You're the only owner and you have no employees. So a lot of times it makes more sense to just stay a sole proprietorship if, what you're making does not really justify turning it into an LLC. First of all, this person doesn't have any employees. They're making $2,000 in revenue. It's their side hustle. And their state charges $500 to form an LLC or a corporation. And then you also have to pay another $500 fee as an annual fee. So at that point, it probably just makes sense to say a sole proprietorship, because why pay that extra $500 if I'm not really trying to grow like that? I don't intend to ever hire anyone. $2,000 in revenue a year is really what I intend to make. Not that much more, not that much less. Okay. Other times you might live in a state that the fee to file an LLC is really low. In that case, then it might make sense, because at that point, there's pretty much no downside, and it also does establish more credibility. So that's when you can get into the state guide here, and I'll just click on this really fast. We'll click on Missouri, and it will give specific information about setting up your entity through this Missouri. So LLC, it's giving a basic rundown. What are the main things you need before you even have the information that you have to put into each thing? Just for a logistics, like budgeting type thing. Okay, like you say you're at the decision point of, should I remain a sole proprietor or be an LLC? And the main thing that's holding you up is the fee. So now I see, okay, I have a filing document I have to do, which is the articles of organization. Here is a link to file the LLC for Missouri, and the new one. And then now I also know there's a $50 initial filing fee. It's $50 online. It's $105 by mail. I'm not really sure why, but clearly it's cheaper to file online. And there's no annual fee, and then there's also no annual report required. So pretty much all I need is $50, and I need to fill out these forms, but I don't really know what those forms entail. So, okay, I think I'm definitely going to do an LLC. Cool. Well, maybe I should do a corporation. Oh, no, I don't want to do a corporation. And the only reason why I'm saying no right now is because there's a $50 fee. That's fine. I'm cool with that. But then there's an initial registration report. That's okay. I don't feel like doing that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have too much going on. I don't want to do that. So I'm just not going to do that. Plus it's $20 more. And there's an annual or a biannual report. That's okay. I don't need, just out of pure like laziness, I just don't even want to do that. Like, this is what I'm just narrating a way to like go through the first decisions. Maybe over time you'll realize, oh, I'm going to expand a lot. I actually should create a corporation. But at the very beginning, I'm just kind of narrating how this decision-making process could go. Okay. So we're just going to do an LLC. Okay. So I've decided I'm going to do an LLC. I've gone through the decision-making on what it takes to remain a sole proprietorship or become an LLC or a corporation. So I've completed that. Next, now it's time for me to really understand my entity choices. Again, we went through that state guide just now, and I just was like, I don't want to spend that extra money. Really though, I really don't want to spend that extra time filling out more reports. I just don't want to do that. That's why I don't want to do a corporation. But I want to protect my assets, and somebody told me an LLC means you're protecting that. I don't really know, but I'm pretty sure if it's a sole proprietorship, so you don't have to do anything. So I'm sure that would mean I'm at risk. Again, this is me going off of just like what I heard. Okay, so now I know I can understand more about what these entities are. So we're gonna just, for the sake of this, the first thing that I really learned through Legal GPS, and I've mentioned this briefly before we got into this, is that in addition to making the choice of LLC, corporation, nonprofit, etc., you also have to make a choice about how the entity is going to get taxed. And so the first time I ever even saw this, because I, as a musician, have a sole proprietorship that I have never registered as an LLC or anything like that. So I've never considered the tax entity part of it. Somebody came to me and asked me, he said he had talked to a CPA and they said something about C corporation. And I was like, what? I'm not really sure what that is, but let's see if this tool can help us. And lo and behold, we get to the section on you have two different choices to make. It looked way different at that time, but it was essentially the same information. And that's when we discovered, yes, that's when you have to make a tax law entity choice. So that is what he was referring to. So in that moment, I then understood that's what a tax law entity is. And that's when he understood that there's a difference between a state law entity and a tax law entity. They are not the same thing. You will make two separate decisions and they correspond to each other, but they're not the same thing. So you don't want to get things confused. So a C corporation is not the state entity, it's its tax entity. All right, so again, first choice is the state law, second choice is the tax law entity. This section is going to help you go through all of the different configurations of those two choices. So you have basically different combinations that you can work through. And I'm not going to read all this, but anytime you see a deep dive in Legal GPS, just know you're in for a lot of illumination, and you don't ever want to skip the deep dives. This deep dive is where it's going to walk you through all of the logic in making the entity choices. So again, it's just saying, again, you have two entity choices. First, it's going to really talk about what is a state entity, then what is a tax entity, and what are your options within each. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom here because it has a great summary of all of the options here. Now, you're looking at this and you don't necessarily know what these things are saying necessarily because you haven't gone through, the time to really understand what these things mean. But this is just the basically grand list of the options that you have if you opt for a for-profit organization that is not going to be a sole proprietorship. So if I know I'm going to do an LLC and I know I'm only going to be the sole owner, these are the options that I have. I can be an LLC as the state entity with a tax entity that's disregarded. I can be an LLC that has a C corporation tax entity. I can be an LLC that has an S corporation tax entity. Those are my choices. I have no idea what those choices actually mean, but I will when I actually read what this is saying and even go through this video. There's a nice video here. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the task list. I'm going to say I've done this to mark it complete. And then now my state entity choice is I need to choose whether I want to be an LLC or corporation. So this is where we're getting into what are the differences. Why would you do one over the other? Another deep dive. This is going to take us now through the logic that helps us decide for our own specific situation. Does an LLC make sense or does a corporation make sense? And so this is really going to cover the main decision factors that people go through when they are deciding between these two options. So again, this is just to show you holistically, Legal GPS is here to help you make decisions, even more so than showing you what to do. It's helping you make decisions. All right. Also note, we've got this state entity guide that you can download. It's a PDF. And hold on. Can you see this when I click on it, or is it going to something else? I think, can you see it? Awesome. So this is the state entity cheat sheet. I think what I might do is just send this to everybody who registered, so you just have this. But this is something you can access in Legal GPS. But this can be a great tool just for you to understand what's even happening as far as the state law choice, just for you to start off with. So if you come into Legal GPS, even having some knowledge on just state law entities, you know, Legal GPS is going to send you that much further, if that makes sense. But even if you had no information, you will understand by the time you've finished using Legal GPS. But this is for folks, you know, who have signed up and are kind of indicating they want to have a head start. So I'm going to send this to people. All right. So we're back to this task here. Choose to be an LLC or corporation. Once we've decided, and again, just to cheat, we know this is just doubled down for sure. I want to be an LLC. I've marked that complete. Let's go to next. Now that we understand what a state law entity is and what the options are, and we know for sure we want to be an LLC, and now we've read all of that information about the tax law entities, this is now our option, or this is now our opportunity to decide how we want to be taxed based off of the information we have been given. So this is just to reiterate, with an LLC, you've got 3 tax choice entity options. The first is disregarded. This is the default. So if you did nothing, if you didn't even know you had to set up a tax entity, it didn't have Legal GPS, but you know, I'm going to set up an LLC and you just didn't do anything as far as tax entity, it's default disregarded. So most people who have no idea what a tax entity is, but know they're going to set up an LLC and hit the ground running, and they know they can just follow the steps on the Secretary of State, they have elected to have a disregarded entity, even though they haven't done anything because it's the default. So the general rule of thumb is that if your LLC is making less than $100,000 a year, it's most likely remains the case that you should just be a disregarded entity. So it really comes down to how much revenue you're making. Again, this is just my side thing. All right, I'm not trying to make $100,000 a year through this. So I think a disregarded entity makes the most sense. But sometimes you might need to elect a different option, and it does mean more work, but it might make the most sense. So that means you could choose between an S corporation or a C corporation. So S corporations, just to note, they're also pretty common, but they're really only worth it usually if you have a lot of revenue. So say this LLC, no, this is going to be the full-time thing. And I'm going to be making a lot of money through this. So I think I'm going to do an S corporation. And let's see why. Let's see. Actually, we're not going to see why right now. We're going to look at C corporation. C corporation, most LLCs do not do this. That's something to think about if you are in the tech space or a space where there's high and very fast growth potential. So that's why when you opt for a corporation, you tend to be in a situation where, and not even 10, let me not even use the word 10, you are in a situation where you are going to be either starting off small and growing rapidly, or you already have something pretty big. And so in that situation, you don't have the option to have a disregarded entity. You're either choosing between an S corporation or a C corporation. Okay. So I'm pretty confident that I'm going to just remain a disregarded entity for my tax choice. So if I feel confident in that, I'm ready to move to level 2. If I'm not that confident, I still am not sure, then it's probably time to just do another deep dive. And this is where we can make the right decision. So this is where we're going to really be looking at LLC plus disregarded entity or LLC plus S corporation. So just note this small choice here, the logic for that, once you get here, is there for you to walk through. So this will be your last thing to do. It's not really a task. It's just if you really need some more reassurance that this is the choice that you want to make. So note that this mark complete, there's no next. That means this is the last task in the level. And so once we've marked that complete, we can go back to the task list. And now we've seen that we've completed everything. So we'll go back to the path, which means now we've unlocked level 2. So what entity have I selected? And here we are assuming it's a state entity. So LLC, how will your LLC be taxed? I'm going to go ahead and do disregarded because the other options don't make sense. And as you've seen, I was very sure about my answers, so the number of questions reduced greatly. So now we're ready for level 2. And this is where we're really getting into the gems. I mean, everything is a gem here, but up till now, it's really been about making sure you have a solid understanding of what is happening before you even make choices. This next section is really where we're ready to get this thing totally set up because we're sure. So I'm just gonna kind of walk through each of the different sections of level 2. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna walk through it like a checklist. So this is essentially like your checklist. This is the point at which, as a small business owner, I'm going to go to the Secretary of State and file for an LLC. And I know that I'm going to have a disregarded entity for the tax reasons. But I don't even know really what I have to do. This is the part that's going to tell you what to do. Welcome to level 2. This is just what to expect. It's going to tell you what's happening here. Mark that complete. Next thing. So step 1 is to pick the best state to form your LLC. And this is going to take you through that logic. You're basically going to be deciding whether or not to pick your home state or a different state. And that's going to depend on what you're doing in the business. And it's going to go through that logic. Okay, there's also a deep dive with that as well. Once you're done with that, you'll mark that complete. Step 2 is to then choose a name. So step 1, we've picked the state. Step 2, now we're choosing a name. With this is where you're deciding on, okay, maybe I already have a name. Now I'm going to check in the Secretary of State business entity search and make sure that there is no other business in my state that has my name. Or maybe I don't know what name I want yet, but I know I want to file. So I'm going to go ahead and just file as my first and last name, LLC. And then later, I will change the name by filing a fictitious name. So this will take you through all of what is involved with that. You'll mark that complete. There's also a task in here that helps you file a fictitious names for an entity. Then the next thing, and this is the part that a lot of people miss. So you've already chosen the state, you have chosen the name, or you've decided that you're going to go the fictitious name route. Now, in this section, let's just say I have gone the route of I know this is my business name, and I've also verified it's not in the Secretary of State listed as another business in my state. Now, I need to make sure I'm not infringing on anybody else's copyrights or trademark to this particular name. So this is where you do a trademark search, and this is where you're going to learn how to actually do that. It'll take you through what you need to do for that. And there's a lot of nuance with this. So this is not one you want to skip over, even though I know I am kind of rushing because we have about 5 minutes left. You definitely want to go through this deep dive, especially if you come up to a situation where you have a similar sounding name, and what to do in those instances. And this also might be where you end up needing to work with an attorney, but it'll take you through what goes into all of that. So you'll mark that complete once you've spent about half a day there. Then we'll go to next. Next thing you'll do after you have verified that you are not infringing on any trademark, you have selected your name and made sure that no one has it in the Secretary of State business entity search, and you've picked your home state. Now you're ready to file the articles of organization. And in this, you're going to decide whether you're going to be a member or manager managed LLC. It's going to take you through that decision-making process. And then you're also going to identify the organizer. And this is the individual who files the LLC's articles of organization. Usually people choose themselves. Sometimes if you're working with an attorney, that attorney will be the organizer. Then registered agent is another important factor here. This is the person or the entity or the place that receives all the court filings. So really what you need to make sure with this is that the physical address is the state in which you're filing the articles. And you also want to make sure that you have access to this, because this is where all the official court documents are going to be sent, all of the official mailings. And then as well, you're also going to be stating the purpose within the articles of organization, the duration, the effective date. And once you're done with that, that's when you'll be ready to draft the operating agreement. So let me just make sure you understand that with the articles of organization, corresponding resources are the state guide. So just make sure that you go back to this. And now we have more understanding of what this is. So we're on this first just to decide based off of the money, like how much does it cost? Now we're back here, and now we can go and actually look at the document itself. This is the template that you use, the official template. So just note that any resources that are listed next to the task are relevant. They are the exact resource you need to use. Okay, next. Next, you're ready to do an operating agreement. And you're going to choose the right template for that. So that is based off of whether you're a member or a manager managed LLC. And you're going to choose the corresponding template with that. It's going to walk you through how to draft it and then what to do once you're done. And all of that information is listed here on the side for you to download and walk through and complete. And then you'll get an EIN, and that will be your last step. So then you'll be done with level 2. And then now that you're done with level 2, you have unlocked level 3, which is not going to take you through any questions. This is now different from Legal GPS previous versions. Legal or level 3 doesn't ask you any questions. There are just basically tasks to complete depending on what you're doing. So if intellectual property is something you are needing to brush up on and understand, here's a primer on that. If you are questioning what licenses and permits you need for your business, here is a primer on that. And then if general, for every person that files an LLC, what you need to do after you've filed. And I'm not going to go through those because that's kind of like a relevant to your own situation, but just know that once you have finished all of the tasks in level 2, that unlocks level 3, which allows you to kind of choose your own adventure as far as what to know next. All right. So with that said, just go back to the home. And Fred, do you have any questions before we totally wrap up for the day?
No, I don't really have no questions. I'm gonna go do it. I'm gonna set up an account today.
Ooh, I love to hear that.
Yeah, and thank you for taking me through this too.
Yeah,
It's good seeing you again too. How you been?
I've been great. How have you been? Happy New
Thank
Year.
you. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Happy New Year to you also.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking for things to pick up a lot more for me this year than it did last. I'm
Mhm.
getting out more. I gave a couple of more presentations at different places.
That's so awesome. We're
yeah,
gonna have to catch up again.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, when I saw the thing, I said, the Rex, I say, I wonder if she's doing this downtown. And I said, nah, bitch, just go online. You know.
I am downtown, but it is online.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
say, well, I'll be down there. Coffee and Conversations Wednesday. Yeah, I'll try to make it down there.
This, yeah.
I try to make that just to see everybody and make
Yeah,
new connections.
I have not been able to attend, but hopefully I'll be able to attend this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be more visible, you know, just and talk. As a matter of fact, I just recently ordered me another batch of business cards because my business phone number changed. So instead of just trying to scratch out, that's why I get
just get some new ones.
Yeah.
Much easier.
Right. And I didn't outline me a couple more brochures, and I might go ahead and get a couple of those printed out. I carry them, but it's like what I say when I make my presentation is basically the same stuff.
I'm gonna stop the recording.
Yeah.
So
it's
just for Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just saying for the recording, I'm gonna stop the recording right now so people that are watching later know that. Okay. So bye. Do you want to say bye, Fred? Do you want to say bye to the people that will be watching later? That way it's not like a weird cut up. All right, I've ended the recording. Stop.
Okay, so